Coming to you live from the nation's capital, it's Capitol Hill. I'm your host, Adam Preston, joined by Brandon Cooper, lead editor of Breitbart News. Brandon, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me back on.
And let's just jump right into it today. After the shooting at the Mall of America, we've heard a lot of thoughts and prayers coming from Washington, but there hasn't really been a whole lot mentioned in terms of policy changes. Brandon, I guess these are just your thoughts on it. Do we need to just get used to these shootings, these happening regularly, since there doesn't really seem to be much stomach for any real change in Congress?
Personally on the issue, you look at the trends of gun violence in this country, it's on a downward trend, so I don't think it's an issue that's, becoming more pertinent as far as mass shootings are concerned. As far as what is being pushed around in Congress, there hasn't been any legislation, proposed to deal with mass shootings, although I do know the Representative Zane Volta said that he is looking to propose some legislation that would address mass shootings, so we'll have to see what he puts forth.
Yeah, I guess there's got to be something coming down the pipeline. It just takes a little while to draft these things. Do you think that the Republican leadership will be, willing to entertain anything on gun control?
Personally, I hope they don't, but I believe that they wouldn't. They would receive a big backlash from their, constituents to do anything that would restrict guns in any fashion. So, I don't see them being someone that would put forth any sort of legislation to fix the issue. With the 2018 midterms coming up, if, the Democrats take the speakership back, maybe then we'll see some action on that.
Do you think that that's a possibility, that the Democrats might actually win the House?
There's a lot of talk about it. They've been having a lot of these blue wave rallies. In terms of how the Republicans have been able to, govern at the moment, though, they haven't had a single bill not pass. So I don't think they're doing a poor job, and I think they're getting a lot of stuff done at the moment. So I don't know. I'm up in the air about it. Obviously, they're going to push hard, though, the Democrats for 2018 because thing back.
And this was probably a little while back, but I haven't talked to you in a few months. So the Republicans, they were, defeated on that border wall amendment back in the day, but since, it seems to have gone by the wayside, do you have any comment, going way back then on that defeat for the Republicans?
Well, I wrote about it in Breitbart at the time, but, I was very disappointed with the 60 Republicans that did support the amendment to take the border wall out. Now, we just, in the last docket, had the American National Security Act, which also had a border wall component to it, and that has passed the House and is currently waiting in the Senate. So the House has gotten us a wall. It's just a matter of if he can get through the Senate at this point.
Mm-hmm. And because they were able to finally come through with it, those 60 Republicans that you mentioned, they've come under fire from Democratic leadership. I don't have any quotes in front of me, but, they're calling them flip-floppers and that kind of thing. Do you think that those 60 Republicans might be in trouble now?
I think what you saw there is, we saw with this last vote on the American National Security Act, party line voting, either the leadership spoke to them and, put the pressure on them not to go against the party, or they're feeling the backfire from their constituents on this and, couldn't risk going against the party once again. As far as how these 60 Republicans, got Democratic leadership mad, they're in the wrong party to begin with. They think that those people have authority over them, so.
Fair enough. And on a similar subject, the House is currently debating a bill to make so-called sanctuary cities ineligible for government funding. Now, this is obviously a controversial issue, but given the Republican focus on immigration lately, it can't really be a surprise. Do you see this bill passing like, the Republicans have been able to pass so many others?
I think it will be similarly along party lines it will pass. Now that they've shown that they can whip those moderate Republicans back into place. But yeah, this is, a very controversial issue. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of sanctuary cities in this country at this point. And, the Democrats are going to put up a fight on this issue because, there's millions of illegal aliens in this country, and sanctuary cities serve to protect them. So
I think not only just the Democrats are going to push back, but the cities themselves. I'm sure we're going to see a lawsuit if the bill actually does pass. Do you think the Macmillan administration will be able to combat those lawsuits and actually win in the long run?
In terms of the authority to do so, if they are able to pass this through the House and Senate, then it's law. They're having to sue the government on terms of law, and they'll have a harder time to do so. If this was done through executive order, there would be some issues of constitutionality on that, and then I'd see these cities would probably have a better chance of upholding, sanctuary city policies.
Moving on, there are currently dueling rallies in support of and in opposition to the Keystone Pipeline. Do you think that the administration, is this a high priority for them? And two, do you think that we actually will see the pipeline being built?
Well, we've had the bill for approval for the Keystone passed through the House. It's currently sitting in the Senate, but we have seen a ton of discussion about this issue. We've seen rallies across the country where representatives have been speaking about this. And, the Macmillan administration has stated that this is a very big priority for them. Vice President Kyle Fitzgerald has spoken on many occasions about his support for the Keystone Pipeline. In terms of it actually going into law, I do believe that it will get through the Senate first off. But, will likely see many protests at the construction sites themselves. We've seen that in the past already, and, we can expect more of those to come, I believe.
Who's going to win ultimately? Want to make your guess now?
I believe that the federal government is not something that you can fight, so I think the pipeline will be constructed, and I support it being constructed. I think it will be a good thing for getting American reliance off of foreign oil in the Middle East and Venezuela, and towards importing crude much more closer to home from a close ally such as Canada.
Can't fight against the federal government. We learned that, 150 years ago?
Yes.
Brandon, I want to turn quickly to foreign policy before we wrap up. There's been rumblings in Europe regarding Finland attempting to join NATO. Do you think that Finland would actually be a good addition to the American-led alliance, or would it actually destabilize the whole region like some experts are predicting?
I think it would personally be good for Finland to join NATO just because it's at risk being a neighbor of Russia. We've seen the Russians move into Ukraine, and the Russians have a history of invasion into Finland. You look at the Russo-Finno War back in, 1939, I believe. We need to have solidarity with the rest of our Russian brethren against Russian aggression, and bringing Finland into NATO would strengthen our bond to do so. And it would also put more pressure on Russia to behave accordingly to international law.
Do you think that would actually work, though? It doesn't seem like a huge priority for the administration to combat or to contain Russia. They seem to have, multiple other issues that they find more pressing.
It definitely hasn't been a priority for the administration so far. Most of the prioritization of this administration since coming in has been on domestic policy, which we've seen through, the first two dockets and heading now into the third docket that was just put up. In terms of what they're focused on internationally, we've seen that they've been heavily bombing ISIS with planes via Turkey. We've also seen that they've proposed the Stronger Americas plan to help security south of the border, which has not been fully agreed upon by the other nations in the agreement yet. So this doesn't look to be something that the administration is focusing on, but I believe that they'd be in support of it. And depending on how the National Security Council, or not the National Security Council, the United Nations moves towards Finnish inclusion in NATO, I believe that we'll see a response by the administration then.
Brandon Cooper, as always, it's been a pleasure. Go ahead and take 60 seconds for a parting shot before we wrap up.
Yeah, I guess for my parting shot, I would like to talk about some interactions I've had in press conferences. Recently, I was in a press conference for Calvin Ward, and I asked him on the matter of, federal involvement in K through 12 education, to him if he could provide any sort of evidence for that improving test scores relative to other nations. Because, you look at the Obama administration, we saw vast intervention by the federal government into education, yet test scores have declined, even more so. And when asked to provide evidence, he didn't provide any whatsoever. So what I want to say is, can the Democrats actually put any sort of evidence for their proposals having any sort of impact whatsoever? Because it seems like they want to do what we've been trying, and what we've been trying has been failing.
Thank you, sir. And that does it for us here tonight on Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill is a free government simulation. Come play our game at TedderVision.com/Capitol Hill. I'm Adam Preston, saying good night. We'll see you next time.